understand and learn this game of what are they looking for? What do they want to find out? How do they want to purchase a company? How can you effectively sell to one of these companies? I think is massive. So if you're not a real estate investor, you got a business or whatever, it's still very important to learn this game.
Welcome. This is the Hot Real Estate Investing Podcast, a podcast dedicated to helping others through real estate investing. Our hosts interview guests from all aspects of real estate investing who generously share valuable experiences and advice. Whether you're starting out or an experienced investor, this is the show for you.
Hello, and how's it going? My name is Travis Shelton, and welcome to the Hot Real Estate Investing Podcast, where I interview guests who want to help others investing in real estate. Thank you so much for tuning in today to part 2 of a very special conversation I had with Bridger Pennington. Thanks for tuning in. Successful syndicators, they're all launching their funds now, right? And it's the next step in the evolution. The only thing I've heard from some investors is they want to know what deal they're going to invest in, right? And so that's the only thing I might add to this conversation is like, hey, you're not going to always know what you're going to invest in, but you really have to do the due diligence on the fund manager and their track record to ensure that they're going to be investing in properties and assets that fit your buy box or fit the criteria of investments that you would want to. And I think once you kind of explain that to most investors, they feel a lot more comfortable. And it's making sure that you as a fund manager have enough track record or people know, like, and trust you enough that they're going to trust you with purchasing that next asset. But as you explain, like you mentioned, some of those positives and how the buying power and how you're going to be able to get in there and get better deals or maybe win more deals than just a syndication. It outweighs it that it's night and day, really, in my experience, just talking to others about the fund game versus the syndication game. And there's value for syndications or single deal syndications.
You're going to lose a few investors when you transition to a fund, though. I'm just going to put that right up. Not every investor is going to love it. And you got to be okay with that. Because you got to say, this is the direction, and in long term, this is a better choice for us. And just so you're aware, you're probably going to lose one or two guys. You know what? I like investing just in the syndication into a deal. And you say, great. Well, if you want me to run them, I guess what? I can't do them anymore. If you want to work with me, we've got to go through the fund model. And they might bicker a little bit, but you just say, guys, this is the route. And we're going to go after bigger family office money and bigger institutional money, bigger check sizes. And guess what? You might lose a few on the way, but the end all result. I love the quote by Stephen Schwartzman. He says, it's just as hard to run a big business as it is to run a small business. It takes everything you got. So you might as well go after a big business. You might as well go after something that scales. The people that run a small business work just as hard as the people that run big businesses, except for the big business people make a lot more money. So you might as well pick a strategy and a course that takes you in that direction.
Yeah, definitely. So is a fund a viable option for a newer investor?
Yes, actually, I would say so. Depends on, I point out 3 different circles or roles inside of a fund. Number 1 is expert investor, which I think a lot of people on your show sound like they are. They want to be the expert real estate guy that understands real estate really well, which is great. The other bubble is what's called a fund manager. I'm using my hands here so you can see. So expert investor, the next one's a fund manager. That's what I'm really good at. It's actually how to coordinate and run the fund. The last one is the capital raiser. Okay, the capital raiser is someone who brings in lots of capital. Now, these are 3 roles. They can be run by 1 person or 2 people or 3 people or 20 people. Doesn't matter, but all 3 roles need to be filled in a fund. So back to your question, if you want to be the expert investor, my opinion is you should start with smaller deal syndications and slowly build up a track record over a course of a number of years. Okay. As a fund manager, that one's a little interesting. You can learn we actually put out a lot of content and stuff. You can actually learn this game relatively quickly and even test it out and trial with other people and actually partner with people who are really good expert investors and or capital raisers. And then finally, capital raisers, anybody can be a capital raiser at any time, just as long as you have good connections and you're kind of a good salesperson. So you can start anywhere with the fund. So for example, we run a crypto hedge fund. I am not good at crypto. Like, I'm an average crypto guy, and I've learned a lot now since we run this fund, but my 2 partners on this are phenomenal crypto people. And they're my expert investors. And then me and my business partner, Dan, we're good, actually pretty decent capital raisers. And so I run the fund management, and me and Dan both help raise capital. And then we have 2 partners that are really good expert investors. So all of a sudden, I now am a majority, massive partner on a crypto fund, and I don't really know crypto that well. Why? Because I learned the other circles really well. So the answer is yes. If you're, new to the space, learn one of those categories. And you can be on a fund and it's the question comes back to, it's not the how, it's the who. It's not how do I do this, it's who can I find to do this.
I love that. We always talk about who, not how in this podcast. So that's music to my ears. But what's the biggest challenge fund managers are facing right now, and how are you tackling it?
Well, right now, 2023 is, obviously very interesting economic time. We have interest rates through the roof. What's interesting as well, and I'm sure you guys have talked about that at length on this show, but I'll share a few, unique things that are happening right now. We have banks that are holding a lot of debt, both on the bond side. So if you saw, Silicon Valley Bank, Credit, all these banks that blew up, Silvergate, Credit Suisse, most of them were because they were holding bonds that lost a huge amount of value over the course of the last 18 months. They were buying these bonds and had to mark them down. And a lot of banks till right now have not market to market, meaning they're holding them on their balance sheet. Hey, yeah, these bonds are worth $100 million, when in reality, they're only worth $60 million. But they haven't marked it to market on their balance sheet. That is looking like over the next 2 to 3 quarters, they're going to have to start marking to market over the let's call it the next 3 quarters, which may change up the banking industry quite a bit. Additionally, the yield curve is the most inverted it's been in decades, and it's been inverted now for 7-8 months, something like that. That totally destroys the banking model. Banks are designed to borrow short essentially from depositors, and they lend out at a higher rate or lend long. And so they play that spread. Well, right now these spreads are inverted. And what that means is banks cannot run their business model does not work on an inverted yield curve, which we've seen at a massive rate right now. Additionally, you have you can probably talk about this at length. Commercial real estate space is looking like it's heading for just a train wreck in slow motion right now. You have San Francisco, for example, where it's like 50-60% occupancy rate in massive and huge companies moving out, work from home. So the supply side's down, and also companies are just down on revenue. A lot of companies we're seeing right now are down 30-40% revenue this year. NVIDIA, for example, who is just like the shining star. NVIDIA is like the best company ever right now, right? Their gaming division is down 40% this year. Consumer gaming. I think we're at an interesting crux right now. So what that means for fund managers, depending on how they're positioned in 2 ways. If fund managers are long those assets, they're obviously in a world of hurt right now. A lot of VCs right now are marking down. Again, same thing. They invested a company that was a $100 million valuation that today is maybe worth $40 million. And they've got to mark that down and report that to investors. But a lot of these institutions are slow to report on purpose. They don't want to report that tomorrow. So they're slow to report until investors kind of demand it, which happens over the course of, let's call it 6, 12, 18 months. But right now we're starting to see these reports started coming out where funds and big banks and institutions are marking down their portfolios. So we're seeing that happen. In addition with, just a credit crunch across the entire economy. Some people are pointing to a soft landing versus hard landing. Again, I don't know where we're going to land. But again, my 3 rules for investing are: don't fight the Fed, don't fight the Fed, don't fight the Fed. The Fed right now is tightening the economy. It's a losing game typically to fight the Fed. When the Fed wants to tighten an economy, they will win. Now, they've done a few quantitative easing things. China's come out back with quantitative easing as well. And maybe we're going to have to turn rates. But interest rates are still going up in England right now. Inflation is still up in England. Right now, we have tapered inflation, at least as far as their reports go. It's funny, their reporting is, you talk to 2 different groups of economists. Some say that the reporting is accurate. Some say it's double. It's the worst reporting of all time. The CPI and all these numbers they track are kind of manipulated basket of goods, and they keep changing the basket of goods. Anyways, we can dive into that. But all this is getting to is back to your question. Where are funds at right now? Some funds are over-levered and are going to be in a world of hurt. A lot of funds, though, right now as well are in an amazing spot to have a lot of dry powder. The one industry, or actually 2 industries that did very well during 2007, 2008 were the hedge fund industry and actually emerging markets. Those 2, at least in my understanding, were 2 that pretty much went uninterrupted through 2007, 2008, 2009, 2010, and that range. funds that are positioned well that have, and some of the smartest people on earth run funds. And we're talking about broad macro here. So you can go through each sector and have different types of returns, but funds that are ready to buy assets on the cheap right now are in an amazing spot. Actually, our fund right now, we think we're in a very good spot. We have, a good amount of dry powder. We're buying up deals as they drop, and we're in the crypto market. So there's, we're kind of in a crypto winter, and we've been buying up incredible prices on some of these tokens that we just think are undervalued. Some of them we're still waiting on. Some of them we still think are overvalued and they still need to drop. So the same thing we're seeing in real estate markets. And I've seen some funds starting to buy, some funds waiting. It just depends on the fund manager and their, risk tolerance and where they're at and where they're finding deals. But what I'm saying is deals are here and deals are starting to come, and it's an amazing time. If you have a fund during a crash, that's what produces tomorrow's billionaires. The billionaires of today were made because of the former previous crashes and how they essentially took advantage, and they had capital ready to deploy during those crashes. My message to people on this call is have capital ready to deploy when good deals come around. And again, it's really hard to time a market. And so I won't even comment on that. But if you find incredible deals that it's just like, man, this is hard to lose, when there's blood in the streets, which we've seen in some sectors of the economy, crypto, we'd say we've already seen a lot of blood in the streets. It's decent. You can historically say it's usually a good time to invest. But anyways, I'll end with that. But it's a good time.
That was amazing. I honestly, I can't even follow up with another question, because you did such a great circle about just talking about, the Fed to all the way to what investors are worried about. And also like blue sea, red ocean, those sorts of things. I think there's going to be a Red Sea in commercial, right? There's going to be blood in the waters with some commercial, and it's going to be, cash is going to be king. And as you mentioned, I mean, that's what I've been telling people is like, you can't wait to buy real estate, but at the same time, you're not going to be able to time the market. You got to get out there and take action and learn from your mistakes and be ready to buy when all these great buying opportunities will possess themselves here and then in the very near future. So thank you so much for sharing all that. Anything else, I guess, regarding funds before I throw you in the hot seat that you'd want to share with our audience? Just anything maybe I didn't ask you that you'd like to share with the audience?
I'll share one last thing, and then I'm excited for the hot seat. We've talked about real estate and asset buying, like, purchasing funds. Funds can also be used for businesses. There's a lot of businesses out there that need to raise capital. And traditionally you think, I should raise maybe I get debt from a bank. I borrow some money from a bank, or I go get equity. I raise, like from Kevin O'Leary on Shark Tank, I go give up 20% of my company. I raise a seed round or whatever round you want to do. Those are fine options, but also a different third-party option is you start a fund. For example, we had a guy that runs a gun store here in Utah. He wanted to buy up all of his competitor gun stores in the area. And so he had these options. I said, hey, what if we did a fund? We set up an external fund that goes and buys. It's a private equity fund that buys your competitors. And then we own, let's call them 7 or 8 competitors that the fund buys, the fund owns them. But hey, your company is really good at running gun stores, right? Well, the fund is going to contract you to come run these gun stores. And you can put your branding on them. You can come, essentially control them. And so your company will come and control and run, put the branding, put new signage up. And essentially you now have, through 2 entities now, control over an entire market, and essentially have a monopoly on a full market. And you can use supply chains and for doing that, they'll pay you like a management fee of, or like a corporation fee of 4 or 5% to just run the stores. And those run as individual entities. And when those competitor stores make money, it flows back to the fund. But guess who owns the fund? You do. And your investors. So you guys make money there. You keep your current business intact. You don't have to give up 20, 25%. You can leave that business running. It's a good business. And we do this whole new venture through a fund. And I hopefully that people followed that. Maybe rewind if you didn't follow that. But that's a really cool way. If you want to scale your business out, right now, there's consolidation happening in a ton of business spaces. For example, dental offices are being bought up at mass right now. Dentists are being consolidated through a similar strategy, through funds, buying up dental practices and rolling them together. Car washes, like these Wiggy Washes or Quick Quack or all these different car washes, are a lot of times owned by the same owners, and they just they're buying up this industry. We're seeing this on, even restaurants or pizza joints where they're buying up these different food service businesses and rolling them together, and they have economies of scale, which is really cool. So if you're a business owner, this is worth understanding and worth learning this game and space to maybe expand that way. And, or you're going to sell your business one day, probably to a fund, big private equity firm. You should understand and learn this game of what are they looking for? What do they want to find out? How do they want to purchase a company? How can you effectively sell to one of these companies? I think is massive. So if you're not a real estate investor, you got a business or whatever, still very important to learn this game.
No, I love it. I mean, that was a mic drop moment right there, Bridger. I love that. And we've talked a little bit about commercial real estate. We've had actually Sammer from Black Card join me and talk a little bit about how he's flipping some commercial products and stuff like that. So super valuable. And thanks for sharing that, because we kind of miss, I mean, the fund world is huge, right? And we really talked about real estate funds today. You touched on venture capital and some of the other opportunities out there in funds, but the fund world is massive. And so today we're really just talking about real estate funds, but everyone listening, know that there's a whole nother world out there for funds that if you're interested in, definitely follow Bridger and get more information. But Bridger, it's time for the hot seat. You ready?
All right, I'm ready. Let's do it.
All right. We ask all our guests the same final 4 hot questions. So number 1, what is one book you'd recommend to someone wanting to know more about real estate investing? And if not real estate investing, something about entrepreneurism or motivation or the fund world.
Oh man, a bunch of books come to mind. What's funny is there's not very many great books on funds, which is kind of sad, actually. I'm in the process right now of writing a book because there's just not very many great books on funds, which is, anyways, I digress. Entrepreneurship, though, I'm going to share a couple books that I just love on entrepreneurship. Well, you asked for one. I'll give you one. But E-Myth is incredible. These are kind of core ones you probably read. The E-Myth, Expert Secrets by Russell Brunson, incredible book. Launch by Jeff Walker, an incredible book. Maybe one you haven't heard of. I'll give you this one, is Lost and Founder. Lost and Founder, I recently read. It's about a guy that launched a venture-backed company, and he shares the real true inside scoop of running a venture-backed business. His company's now worth like $200 million, and it sounds amazing and stuff. And he's like, yeah, it sounds cool and all. I have ran this company for 11 years. I make about $100,000 a year, maybe $200,000 on my better years. I've never had a distribution. I've never made any money off of my stock. My stock is locked up from venture capital firms that came in, and I can't get it released. And I have buddies that run a service-based company that's, worth maybe 20 million, and they sell that company for 20 million. They take home 15 million. And that's actually more money than I would make running a venture-backed company. And he says the average founder, ends up with 11% equity at the end of their full company. So if you sold your company for $1 billion, you had a unicorn, like top 1% unicorn company, you'd end up with about 100 million, 110 million. If you sold your company for 100 million, you'd end up with 11 million. It's kind of interesting. But if you sold a service-based company for 20 million, you'd end up with 15, and you'd actually make more money than the guy that you sold his company for 100 million. So he goes through this whole, it's very raw and just like factual and to the point. If you're interested in this game of entrepreneurship or building businesses, he really goes through and how to structure. He's like, if I could do this over again, this is how I would do it. It's a fantastic book. The book's called Lost and Founder. That's one maybe people haven't heard of on here.
Oh, I love it. I'm definitely going to check that one out. It sounds like a great book. What's your favorite productivity tip or trick, maybe a tool or app that helps you get more done? You do so much. You're out there. You run this amazing businesses. How do you get so much done? Like share a secret.
I cold baths. I do cold plunges every morning, and I do sauna as well. I actually, it's funny. I play around with my morning routine a lot. I like to try stuff. I woke up at like 5 a.m. for a period. And then I tried to do, I did intermittent fasting for 2 years where you don't eat for 16 hours a day. I did that. I've done morning. I've done, reading and then books. And I work right when I wake up or I work later. I like experimenting with how I work. And so what's worked for me actually, as what I do currently, I don't set an alarm. I go to sleep. I let my body naturally wake myself up because I normally wake up early anyways. I just naturally wake up. And so what happens is your body runs through like a REM cycle and it wakes you up naturally. I end up waking usually between 6:30 and 7:15. I then wake up. I do cold plunge right away because that just gives me a huge dopamine hit and it just sparks me. I then do a workout. And then I do actually, if I have time, it depends on what time I wake up. I do sauna for like 15, 20 minutes. And I read in the sauna, which is pretty fun. And if I call that like, it's a freaking amazing morning. I don't know. I'm all about energy and controlling energy. I don't like energy drinks. I don't like, because I think that plays with your energy. Pre-workouts, I think, play with your energy. Sometimes even some supplements or some things you eat. I really track how I feel after I eat food. If you eat like a big burrito and then you're sleepy at 2 p.m., I remember that. And I say, well, I'm probably not, I need to be effective at 2 p.m. and 3 p.m. So I'm not going to eat that for lunch again. I'm going to eat something that keeps me awake and alert for lunch. And so anyways, I could go on and on about routines and energy. And by the way, I'm still experimenting. I haven't figured out the perfect thing yet, but I actually really like trying stuff out. I try out anything on routines and morning stuff, and I just love it. But that's currently like my favorite structure. I've done this for 5 years now, probably, is I actually try to sleep 8 hours a night, even 9 hours. I try to sleep a lot. I think sleep is massive. It's funny. I'll tell you a quick story. When I was in college, I was this young hustler, just crazy. I started 6 businesses in college. I was just like on fire, and I was all about efficiency. Every moment's efficient. I got to wake up at 5:30. I'm David Goggins. I got to wake up at 4:30. That's even better, and I'm going to do this. I'm going to do affirmations and everything. And I did that for a period. And I read a book that changed my life. It was called Essentialism. And it pretty much turned that whole theory on its head. And I actually now agree with the book. And it said, if you sleep deprive yourself, what happens is watch your full day. I know you're more efficient for those 2 or 3 hours, but watch on a 24-hour or a 72-hour cycle. What happens is you crash. You then sleep in. You're ineffective in the afternoons. You have to go to bed early or late. You end up becoming less effective over the course of a week if you do that, or a course of a month. And what they went through this whole study on people that are like concert pianists or people that are athletes, really high performing people. The average sleep was like 9 to 9.5 hours a day. Just crazy. They were sleeping like huge amounts. And these really high performers, people that scored really well on test scores and stuff, they all had really good sleep habits. And anyways, so that kind of changed. I was like, what? I'm going to try this. So then I switched my whole thing. I was like, I'm going to sleep as much as my body wants me to. And I end up sleeping about 7.5 to 8 hours right now a night. And I wake up alert, focused. I come through my whole REM cycle. I hate when an alarm wakes you up because sometimes it pulls you out of a REM cycle and it makes you all groggy. And then I wake up, I go right to a cold plunge, which is like freaking that. It's like an energy drink on times 1,000. And anyways, it's pretty fun. So I'll stop there.
I love it. I'm a big geek in the morning rituals and routines and stuff too. I jump in my pool for the cold plunge, but I've been doing savers for a long years, that Hal Elrod miracle morning type stuff, but have kind of created in my own unique morning routine that I like, but I like tweaking it up too. So I always ask people this because I find that the most successful people have some of the most rituals or the most things that they accomplish every day. And it seems like it's like momentum for the rest of the day to get more stuff done. So thanks for sharing your cold plunge and those things. Bridger, what's the biggest mistake or failure you've made as an entrepreneur? And what did you learn from that experience?
What's funny is to date, there haven't been like any major blows, which is actually incredible. And I honestly thank God for that. And now I'm a relatively young entrepreneur, and almost every entrepreneur you interview is like, yeah, I was a millionaire and then I lost it all. And then I made it back again. And then I lost it all again. And I just haven't done that. And I think I'll tell you 2 stories, and I have had mistakes though. And I can tell you a few of those, but I want to tell 2 stories. This is like 2.5 years ago. I'm still in my 20s, but I was like, I can't remember, I was 25, 4 at the time, something like that. And this is 2 separate occasions that happened within about 2.5 weeks of each other. These 2 gentlemen bring me in. Both these guys are twice my age. They're in their 40s. And I mean, these guys are deca millionaires, if not 100 millionaires. Very wealthy. They've got private planes. They've got Ferraris. They've got Lamborghinis. They've got the big houses. They've got everything. Okay. I would call them mentors, people I would aspire to be in life. I was like, wow, these guys are crazy. They bring me in. This is 2 different meetings, but they almost happened exactly the same. We sat down, we talked for a while, and they said, Bridger, I want to do a fund. I want you to run it for me, which is the power, by the way, of learning what funds are. I'm 25. And they're like, I want you to run my fund for me. I was like, really? What's our equity split? I mean, it was a big percentage. And they say, hey, we're confident we're going to manage about 100 to 150 million our first year. And, that's pretty good money for me that I'm going to make. I'm going to be making millions of dollars just like in the next 12 months doing this. And these guys have already done tons of deals. It wasn't like a shot in the dark. These guys are already doing lots of stuff. And they just said, I want to roll all my, different syndications essentially together in a fund. And I'm going to pay you a lot to do it for me. And I was like, cool. And I said, let me just think about it, go home and, pray about it. And both these meetings happened, two different guys, two different separate things, about 2 weeks apart. And I went home, and this is like a dream come true for anybody. I mean, anyone would say this is like you hit the jackpot. I went home, and I'm a pretty faith-based person. I prayed about it, and I felt a direct no from God. Like, do not do this. And so I was like, huh. And I kind of prayed again. I was like, no, do not do this. And I said, okay, like I follow. If God ever speaks to me, like I will follow. I'm not going to question God. And so I'm like, hey, and I went back to this guy and I told him no. I said, hey, sorry, I just got other stuff. And he's like, really? You're going to turn this? And I was just like, dude, I just, for whatever reason, I just don't feel good about it. I'm sorry. And then 2 weeks later, same thing. I tell this other guy no. And both of them were kind of like, well, you missed your chance, kid. Like, good luck. Get out of here. And they kind of just kicked me out. Like, you're done. I was like, okay. That was, I don't know, let's call that, I can't remember, 3 years ago. Come to find out, both those guys have had huge blowups. One guy was running a massive Ponzi scheme. Didn't find it out until just a few weeks ago. Huge deal. It would have ruined my reputation. It would have been terrible, massive. I mean, I'm talking hundreds of millions of dollar Ponzi scheme. Huge. The other guy, has had a terrible reputational thing and huge problems and investors hating and fighting and lawsuits, and they're losing tons of money. Like the whole thing is blown up, both guys. And I was like, wow. And literally 2 weeks ago, I was talking to my wife and I was like, we dodged a massive bullet. And that's just a comment to believe in God and I don't know. I'm a faith-based person. I believe in God, and I think God loves all of us and cares about our business dealings and what we're doing in every aspect of our life. And I pray about pretty much every business decision I make. And those are two huge, huge failures that would have happened almost back to back if I would have done both of them or one of them. And it's just massive. Anyways, I'll stop there. But
following your instincts and following your faith, and there's a lot to go with that. So thanks for sharing that, because I haven't heard that story from you, and that's nuts. But so often I feel like people would take that easy button or take all the money, and I think staying true to yourself and listening to your to upper being and listening to God was super important in this setting. And finally, Bridger, if you could be remembered for one thing, what would it be?
I want to be remembered for my family. I want to be remembered for how my family lived their lives. And I don't know if this makes any sense, but the most successful people I know on earth, and I define success and maybe different. I'm not talking worldly success or money success. I'm talking just success in general, like my core definition of success. They have their first marriage with a beautiful woman or man, and whoever they are, and they've got a family of kids, and those kids are doing incredible things. And those kids, and I know sometimes you can't control every kid and kids do bad things, whatever. But in general, if their kids are great people and smart and sharp and doing great things in the world, is massive. And if I can, you can't buy that. That takes 30 years. That's something that literally takes half of your life to build. And to do it the right way and have kids that are good, incredible people that are going out and changing the world, and then also having grandkids that are doing the same thing and having a posterity that is incredible people. And I don't care how rich or poor or whatever, but incredible humans. Me and my wife talk about this. Like, we are on a mission to create an incredible family. And we're going to have bumps in the road. And we're going to have probably kids that go do crazy stuff, and you can't control everything. But if we can do that, that's what I define as a success in my true mission in life. And I want, anyways, I can go on and on about how we're thinking about doing that and everything, but I'll stop there. But I'll tell you one last story. Well, last week, when my wife's family is the definition of this. My wife's family, my family as well. My parents did a great job. My wife's family, we were with her whole extended family. Her grandpa was just he had 5 fathers. His mom was a prostitute growing up, grew up in a terrible situation. Anyways, he gets to college, finds God and Jesus, changes his whole life, actually gets baptized, member of the Church of Jesus Christ, changes his whole life, becomes a lawyer, makes good money, gets married, he goes to Vietnam. He gets called to serve in Vietnam. He has to come back. Anyways, he has this crazy life. He then raises 5 kids, those kids have gone out and do incredible things. We were just with them last week at Pirates Cove in Las Vegas, and this huge resort. There's like 50 people there of just his posterity, which is so cool. We're all in this room, we're talking, and one of the uncles invited a friend over to come, and he walks in and he's talking to us, and he kind of told the grandpa, he's like, dude, this is unreal. People go out and they try to, they do drugs, strippers, cocaine, private jets. They try to buy happiness in a lot of ways. And you come here and you see pretty much 60 people of your posterity that are like, these are sharp, happy, good people. I mean, like across the board, every single person there is like, wow, these are like sharp, incredible humans. And I was like, wow. And he's like, dude, this is true success. And he kind of made a comment like, man, if I could go back, this is what I would have gone after. And you can't. It takes a lifetime to build that. And they have it. It's just phenomenal. And me and my wife we're going to have that, and we're going to go through it. We're going to stick together. We're a team. We're going to make this thing work. And it's pretty fun. So I'll stop there, but to answer your question, that's what it is.
No, thanks for sharing. We're so alike in that, I have 3 young kids as you know, and my wife's bugging for number 4, and I'm kind of like, and that's how she gets me. She's like, well, Travis, your biggest legacy is, the children, right? And who you raise. It's not what you do. You're not leaving with any money. You're not, you don't go to heaven with any of these things. It's what do you leave behind? And that's your legacy. It's these kids and what we put into the time and effort that we do with our kids. And thanks for sharing that. And it just shares a lot about yourself and what a great person you are and everything. The best place for the Hot REI community to connect with Bridger is on Bridger's Instagram at Bridger_Pennington and on his YouTube channel, Bridger Pennington. Please check out his content. It's phenomenal if you want to know more about the fund world. Thank you again, Bridger, today, man. It was a lot of fun. We shot a little bit more content than I expected, but you just brought so much value that, I couldn't cut you off and I didn't want to hit the stop button. And I think the audience gained a tremendous amount of value over funds, real estate funds, secrets of real estate funds, why people should be involved in real estate funds. So just thank you so much again, Bridger, man. It was such a pleasure. And to the audience, thank you for tuning in today and commit to taking action today to move your investing forward. Take care and God bless.
Thank you for listening to the Hot Real Estate Investing Podcast. Check out our website, hotrei.com, for additional content and resources. And please take a moment to subscribe and leave a review so we can continue to bring even more value to others through real estate investing.